Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Joe DBAs. I'm the host of a local internet radio show called Local Pulse. We've been talking about it, the Whittier project, on the show for the past couple of weeks. And my job here tonight is just to keep things moving along and make some introductions and probably run around with a microphone later on and when it comes time for questions. I was asked to tell you that the slides from the presentation that you'll be seeing tonight are available at cityofnewburyport.com. Just go to the homepage, scroll down a little bit, and you'll see where the slides are. I was also asked if people could raise their hands to let us know what town or city you're from. So I'm going to go through the 11 cities and towns. If you're from that city or town, just raise your hand so we can know who's here. So anybody here from Amesbury? Georgetown, Groveland, Haverhill, Ipswich. Okay, one. Merrimack, Newbury, Newburyport. Wow. Rowley, Salisbury, and last but not least, Western Newbury. All right, thank you for that. There are also there are representatives elected and administrative representatives from each of those cities and towns that are here, I believe, and there'll be an opportunity for them to ask questions and for others to ask questions later. I should point out that in the interest of fairness, on this Saturday's episode of Local Pulse, there will be somebody from the Yes on Whittier side of things to kind of give their side of the story. I always like presenting both sides of an issue on the show. If you're not familiar with the show, it's hosted at the Daily News. So if you go to newburyportnews.com and scroll down and look for the bald guy with the microphone, that's me. And that's where you can listen to the show Saturday mornings at 9, and then it's a podcast right after that. The way it's going to work tonight is Mayor Sean Reardon from Newburyport is going to give the history of the Whittier project with a presentation. Following that, there will be a presentation by the Newburyport Finance Director, Ethan Manning, on the financials. Then Mayor Reardon will talk about the voting, what does a yes and a no vote mean, and after that, there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers, so please hold your questions till then, and I think we'll be running around with microphones so everyone can hear. So with no further ado, the Mayor of Newburyport, Sean Reardon.
All right, thank you, Joe. I just want to thank Salisbury Community TV is here, and also Port Media, so you are able to watch this at home, and it will be on their respective YouTube channels, so you can actually go check this out after this. This presentation is already on the City of Newburyport website. It will be sent to all other 10 cities and towns for them to do with it what they would like. Hopefully they're going to publish it and put it up on their website so people can check it out. Kind of why I set this up tonight, or why Newburyport we were talking about setting this up tonight, is that this is all happening really, really fast, right? Votes are happening really, really soon. 2 weeks from tonight, there's a vote happening. And there's a lot of people, from what I hear, that don't have any answers to questions that they need. And so we did ask Whittier to come tonight. We wanted them to come because, in November, they canceled all of the public forums they had left after their Georgetown forum. And they didn't reschedule. So this is why we wanted to put this together, to just give people some basic information about what's being asked of everybody, and then they can make their own decisions about how they're going to vote here in a couple weeks. So first, closer, sorry. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, thank you. All right, so I just want to give you a little bit of history. A lot of people don't even know a lot about Whittier. Whittier's been around for a long time, 1972. So here, I just want to talk a little bit. So Whittier was formed in 1967. The document is actually, if you go on the Newburyport website, you can actually see it. You can see it from the Whittier website as well. It's actually like a typewritten document. It's called the Acts of 1967. And so back then, these 11 communities came together and signed this agreement to form Whittier, this regional vocational technical school, okay? Now, the original construction of the building, that was done with state funds, so it wasn't like all the communities got together and said, hey, we want to build this school. let's all chip in this money and we'll do it. It was built with state funds, and then the state funds came once the agreement was made in 1967, okay? And it's never been amended. It's the same document that was signed back in 1967. Okay, so in that document, it tells the funding formula for capital projects, and it also talks about the funding formula for your operational budget. Okay, so for capital costs, the allocation is divided among the cities and towns by the number of kids you have in your school district, which is important because that's not the way a lot of vocational schools do it. It's pretty rare. So in the case of, this, we'll actually go into that a little bit more a little later. But so that's important. So it's the number of kids in your school district. It's not how many kids you have going to Whittier. How many kids you have going to Whittier right now, that's how they figure out your assessment for your operating costs each year. That's based on enrollment into the school. Okay, now another couple questions that we'll be getting a lot about the agreement, all right? Like, how come can you just get out of the agreement? Like, how can you amend the agreement? Why has nothing been done about this? And I just mentioned that the agreement had never been amended. To try to get out of I'll say how to amend the agreement first. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can try to get a petition signed, which I believe there's one actively going right now, but you can get a petition signed by 5% of the registered voters in any one of the 11 municipalities. And that can trigger an automatic review of the agreement. Or any city council can pass that at any time. The city council shall vote to accept the proposed amendment within 60 days, or town selectmen for the warrants in the next town meeting. That's been a really interesting part of all this. Like, the more I've got to learn over this process is that cities and towns also operate very differently, which has been challenging. And I think I've been trying to talk to my town folks, but we do things very differently. So it is hard sometimes to get on the same page and turn something around quickly when you're dealing with a town form of government. I think it's a little easier when you're dealing with a city form of government. Okay, now the process to leave a district is difficult as well. And they're both, to make an amendment and to leave the district, it takes a unanimous vote of all 11 cities and towns. So to leave the district, any district at any time can pass something through their town council or their city council to leave the district. And then each of the municipalities would be notified that they are asking to leave the district. Then there would probably be some sort of negotiation there to get out of that contract. But again, every city and town would have to unanimously agree with you leaving the district, whatever the city or town that might be. Okay, let's talk enrollment a little bit. So currently right now there's 1,275 students that attend Whittier. 68% of them are from Haverhill. The next one down is Amesbury, which I believe has 117. And then the rest of us, after that, we're pretty much in the 4% all the way down to 1% range. Okay, so you're talking, the rest of us are all under 60 students out of the 1,275, right? So some of the trends that we're seeing since 2015, right, so the last 10 years. Amesbury, Georgetown, Haverhill, and Salisbury all seem to be going up as far as enrollment. Ipswich has stayed pretty flat. And then Groveland, Merrimack, Newbury, Newburyport, and West Newbury have gone down in enrollment. And this is just another way to look at that. That big, beautiful yellow line at the top, that's Haverhill. And then you'll see the rest of them. I'll blow up the other cities and towns down here. As you can see, there was for a long period of time, back in 2015, everyone was under 80 kids or fewer, and then Amesbury's seen a big jump the last few years. And let's see, Merrimack has actually gone down, and some of them have gone up the last couple years. But again, after Amesbury and Haverhill, everyone else has less than 60 kids currently. It's also important to know, like, how do kids get into Whittier? There is a process. Not everybody gets in. And there's actually some good information. We're going to actually have an appendix to this as well, because we didn't want to put everything in the presentation. But you actually go to the appendix and see, for your city or town, what's the data look like? Like, how many kids are applying each year? How many kids are getting in? There is an acceptance criteria. And again, this is all based on a point system. There's a scholastic achievement, attendance, school discipline and conduct. Then you have school recommendations, sending school recommendations you can have, and then it ends with an interview. So everyone that gets into Whittier has to pass an interview. Okay, and this is all taken from the Whittier vocational website. What's that? Sorry, I'm all over the place. All right, yep, sorry about that. Okay, and so this is just another example of the Whittier Tech overall acceptance rates. As you can see, about 10 years ago, pretty high. Got up to over 80% acceptance rates at one point, and then it kind of trickled down. I think we're hovering around, I think 55% now, so a little over half of kids that apply to Whittier actually get in. Okay, so let's talk about the building plan. Now, again, if Whittier was here, this would be their part of the program, okay? Like, they should be up here selling you on the merits of this school project. Fortunately, they're not, so I'm gonna do my best to just give you the kind of the facts as we know them right now. And I will say Whittier is doing a tour of their facility this weekend. I believe it's the 14th. You can sign up on their website to go take the tour. Do I have the right date? 13th? 13th, sorry. 9 to 11? So 9 to 11 at Whittier this weekend on the 13th. You can sign up. You have to sign up to go, but you can sign up for a tour. How many? Only 26. We haven't seen Whittier. I've been a bunch the last couple years. Sign up for Saturday. Only 26 people are signed up so far. Okay, so let's talk about the building plan a little bit. I'm just going to give you a quick little timeline. Again, Whittier has a great page on this. If you want to go to their page and check out all their information they have around the project, this is all just pulled from there. But they went and did a feasibility study in 2016, okay? After that feasibility study, they tried for a few years to get in the MSBA program, and then they finally get in 2019, okay? The very beginning of 2022, they form a building committee, formed with a lot of Whittier officials and school committee members, former employees, and so they go through the process now. You're working with the MSBA, and then they get to a plan for a new building, all right? So the first time city officials met with Whittier was November of 2022, okay? I was newly in office. It was one of my first trips to Whittier after taking a tour earlier in the year, and they kind of laid out what the building committee had been working on, okay? It was kind of loose numbers at the time. There wasn't definite costs or anything yet. So then we finally get final cost numbers that they were going to submit to the MSBA in October of 2023. I think it was October 4th, okay? Then the next thing that happens there, they work with the cities and towns, but they're working with city clerks to set up a possible date for a vote. They bring in the finance directors from each of the cities and towns and talk about, if this vote passes, this is how the debt would be incurred. And then on December 13th, 2023, there's two big votes that happened that day. One of them was the MSBA vote, okay? So that vote is like the last step for someone in the MSBA program to get final approval to move forward with the project, all right? So that vote happened, and it was successful. It was a 5-0 vote. And then the Whittier School Committee that night had to vote on whether they were going to have this vote on January 23rd, 2 weeks from today. So they decided to have the vote, okay? So what's important there is when the MSBA vote is passed, you have 120 days to hold a vote. I think that's important because a lot of people that night were asking to have it later just so some more information could get out there. We were asking for April, first week of April to have the vote. Much better weather, a few months to get more information out there to residents, not this quick 4-week time frame, but again, we went with an early January 23rd vote. Here we are 2 weeks away. Now, here's the building plan to date. Again, if you want to get really in-depth in this, I would suggest going on the tour or checking out their website. Again, this is a vocational school. They have many wonderful programs and subjects that they go into. I'm just going to name a few of them. It's a 3-story building, so they would have all of their vocational classes on their first 2 buildings: HVAC, automotive, electrical, marine services, carpentry, culinary, cosmetology, and more. Theater, gymnasium, band room, chorus room, fitness room. I don't believe they have band and chorus right now, but they do have a band room, chorus room. And all academic classes would be on the 3rd floor of this building. Also in the plan are 4 baseball diamonds, 4 sport courts, 2 fields, and the stadium is to remain. I know a lot of investment was made in their football field, so that actually is not going to be touched. They're actually going to be building, I believe, behind that. And another important fact is the enrollment's going to stay the same. So it's going to stay at 1,200 plus for enrollment. It's not going up. Okay, the current building. It is in rough shape, right? It's 50 years old. It's important that we're in this building tonight because this building that we're in tonight is 2 years older than Whittier. We made a lot of investments in our school buildings here in Newburyport. A couple years ago, we actually put a lot of money into this school that was opened in 1970. But the Whittier building's in tough shape. 50-year-old building, outdated mechanical and electrical systems, fire protection and accessibility issues, plumbing issues, which I know have been advertised, and it's not ADA compliant. So I just wanted to show there's a lot of OTEC programs going on, or projects going on across the state right now. So I just wanted to show you a couple of them. All right, we have Whittier up the top. We're still waiting on final numbers and the vote and things like that, but it's the most expensive. Again, I think it will be the third most expensive school ever built in the country, most expensive school ever in Massachusetts. $444.6 million, okay? Essex Tech down the road opened in 2014, so 10 years ago. I know a lot of things have changed in 10 years, but I know a lot of people here, Essex Tech is now part of the Cape Ann League, so I'm sure a lot of you have checked out Essex Tech since it's opened. Beautiful school, $133 million. There's Northeast Metro Tech, Diamond Votech down in Fall River, then Tri-County Votech. They are all in around the 300 million range, okay? They also talk about the cost per square foot on the far right there. But those are all projects currently in the works right now. But I just wanted to show kind of apples to apples, what are some of the other costs we're seeing for some of these vocational schools across the state. Okay, that's all I got for you right now. But I'm going to bring up Ethan Manning, and he's going to go through just a bit about the finances around not only the plan that's currently out there, but some of the things that cities and towns need to think about as we approach a vote in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So before we jump into the actual project cost estimates and the financial impacts of the project, I wanted to give some background in terms of the Whittier's current fund balances and also what they've been assessing in capital over the past 10 years. So at the top here, we have what's referred to as the E&D balance, excess and deficiency, which is essentially the Whittier's free cash, their unencumbered, unreserved fund balance, which has ranged anywhere from $900,000 to a little over $1 million over the past 10 years. Down below that, you can see the capital costs over the past 10 academic years, with the capital cost assessment at the very bottom. So back in 2014, it was around $385,000. Over the past 5 years, it has been $695,000, which has been assessed out to the 11-member cities and towns based on the capital funding formula. And I would note there was 1 year where they did use E&D for capital, and that was academic year 2016 to 2017, which was for a bleacher replacement project. So kind of on the left here side, you can see those capital expenses in chronological order. They've done boiler replacements, some electrical panel replacements, a greenhouse repair. They did that large athletic field turf project at a little over $1.7 million from 2019 to 2021. Of course, the MSBA feasibility study at just over $1.5 million. And then some exterior repairs and improvements, just under $300,000. Some redeployment of vocational areas, just under $300,000. And then some recent technology infrastructure upgrades, around $258,000. And then on the right-hand column, you can essentially see what the general contractor has stated the Whittier Tech would need to be code compliant. The estimated cost is approximately $350 million, which comprises a wastewater treatment plant upgrade of $12.8 million, a new sprinkler system, $11.3 million, a new access road for $9.4 million, and then actual code upgrades to the facility at $316.8 million. And again, the mayor already went over this, but really just to reemphasize, operating costs for the Whittier Tech District Agreement are based on the actual kids that are enrolled at the Whittier Tech from your city or town, whereas capital costs are apportioned out based on the number of kids in your actual school district. And together, those make up your total annual assessment which we budget for each year. So this is the current makeup of the Whittier Tech District. You can see the enrollment numbers on the left, in the student population of each city and town on the right. Really, you know, the big outliers, kind of looking at that heat map, if you will. Of course, Haverhill has a good number of kids that attend the Whittier at 68%, compared to 41.6% when you look at their school district as a percentage of the total, you know, kids in the 11 cities and towns. And then again, enrollment is how they're calculating the operating costs. And then the student district's population is how the capital costs are apportioned. And this is the same data showing the capital allocation in blue, enrollment in orange, sorted from largest to smallest. So now I'd like to kind of get into what we're seeing in terms of the actual project cost estimates. And again, this is based on all the information we had available, including the final MSBA grant that was awarded on December 13th of 2023. So the estimated project cost is currently $444.6 million. The maximum MSBA reimbursement is just under $160 million. There's around $15.4 million in federal state rebates, leaving a local share of $269.5 million that would be levied across all 11 cities and towns that make up the school district. So how is that $269.5 million broken out? You can see in the third column what the project cost is for each city and town. So for example, Newburyport pays 11.5% of the capital apportionment, which works out to a project cost of $31 million. When you add in interest from the borrowing, it's just over $60 million. Divided by the 30-year borrowing term, works out to an annual debt service of just over $2 million per year, which for our 29 students that are currently enrolled at the Whittier, it's approximately $69,826 per student in annual debt service that the city of Newburyport would be paying. So kind of the big question many of us have been grappling with is, how will my community fund this? And there's actually no funding plan in place for this project. I know a lot of us might be familiar with going out to the polls, voting on a project that's tied to a debt exclusion. That is not what this is. The January 23rd vote is only a vote to authorize the school district to borrow funds for this project. It does not set up the funding mechanism for any of the 11 cities and towns. So if it were to be approved on January 23rd, all 11 members would kind of need to go back to the drawing board to see how our communities would pay our respective share of the capital assessment, in other words, the annual debt service for the borrowing that would fund this project. So what local funding options would there potentially be? So I think option one, asking the voters to fund the annual debt service above the property tax levy limit. Without getting into the weeds on the levy limit, basically that was put in place back in 1980 under Proposition 2.5. It's the maximum amount of property taxes that a city or town can assess to its taxpayers. And I'll get into that a little bit in the next slide. Option two, of course, accounting for those new costs within your existing budget by perhaps making some budget reductions to pay for that additional assessment. And then option 3, to the extent available, allocating any other available funds that you might have on hand, whether that's your free cash, your rainy day funds, it might be enacting new local option taxes. Some cities and towns might be fortunate enough to have some excess levy capacity you're sitting on that can help kind of bridge that gap, or it could be a combination of some of these options, and perhaps more that I haven't mentioned. So taxing above the levy limit, so you may have heard one or both of these terms, because there are two ways that a city or town can tax above the levy limit. So the first is an override. So an override is a permanent increase to the levy limit, which can raise funds for any legal municipal purpose. In reality, you really see these more for operating costs. You might see some school districts that are struggling to keep up, where the city or town will go out and ask for an override to help fund that budget. The second is a debt exclusion. So what a debt exclusion is, that's a temporary increase to the levy limit tied to the debt service. So in this case, 30 years, give or take, and it can only be used for capital projects. And then, so who decides to bring one of these measures forward? In your towns, it would be your town select board by a 2/3 majority vote. In your cities, your city council by a 2/3 majority vote, with mayor's approval, of course, subject to the provisions of your town bylaws or city charter. So again, as far as this project goes, most cities and towns would be looking at a debt exclusion, potentially after January 23rd, if this were to get approved. And I would just reemphasize that none of these are currently approved or scheduled that I know of in any of the 11 cities or towns. So this chart I could have done for any of the 11 cities and towns. Of course, we're in Newburyport, so I'll use us as the example. This is a look at Newburyport's current debt exclusions, of which we have 4. So of course, you have the one in blue for this building, the one in green for the new Bresnahan Elementary School, which was an MSBA project. And then we have a new senior community center as of 2015. And then we have some debt maturing from a Newburyport High School debt exclusion as well. So you can see for Newburyport, this debt goes out to FY38. And then this is that same chart if you added in the proposed Whittier Tech project. You can see how the debt goes out to FY57. And again, this is assuming that no other projects were brought on as debt exclusions in Newburyport. So you can see it's kind of daunting. So here's a look at the average single-family tax bill in Newburyport. Again, using us as the example, but this can be applied to all 11 cities and towns. So here in Newburyport, the average single-family home is valued at $943,800. So as the borrowing ramps up, once it is fully issued, the tax impact would be $278 for the average single-family home in Newburyport. And as an example, here you can see what our tax increase was this year, going from $8,920 up $490 to $9,410. So had we taken on the Whittier building project at full issuance, it would have been an additional $278 or $9,688 for the full year's tax bill. So hypothetical scenario, what if this project were to get approved, but then a debt exclusion vote was not initiated or successful? So for Newburyport, we need to come up with around $2 million to fund what our additional capital assessment would be. We're fortunate to have a little bit of excess levy capacity, or just under $700,000, which means we'd be looking at around $1.3 million and budget reductions that we need to make to our annual operating budget. And of course, here's our FY24 approved budget. As an example, you can just kind of imagine where we might look to come up with $1.3 million. In budget reductions, of course, the biggest part of our budget is the schools, followed by school and city employee benefits, police, fire, roads, sidewalks, trash, recycling, etc. And with that, I'll turn it back to Mayor Reardon to get into the voting information and talk about kind of what a yes vote means and what a no vote means as we move forward here.
Great. Thanks, Ethan. Great job. A lot of numbers. All right, so just voting information. So we already talked about 2 weeks from tonight, January 23rd, 2024 is the big day. That's when the vote's going to happen in all 11 cities and towns at the same time. It's kind of weird polling hours, okay? It's 8 hours. It's 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I was able to hear from all 11 city clerk's office today, just because I wanted to check if there were any funny polling locations or anything like that happening in all the cities and towns, and I am told there is not. Just to be safe, if you're not sure, please reach out to your city clerk's office in your city and town and ask them where you should be voting. There is no mail-in votes, there is no early voting, but there is absentee ballots. So if you are lucky enough to be heading to Florida very soon, you can actually sign up for an absentee ballot and get that submitted to your city clerk's office, okay? And this is a district-wide simple majority vote, okay? They had two options, and this goes back to the acts of 1967. They could have chose a town-by-town vote, where if that happened, if it wasn't unanimous, again, everything in that contract has to be unanimous. If it wasn't unanimous, then it would fail. Or you could do a district-wide majority vote, and it's just add them all up, and if the yes get 50 plus 1, then it's a yes. If it's in the other way, then it's a no. So, of course, every vote counts. Okay, so this is the semantics part, right? Like, what does a yes mean and what does a no mean? Okay, so again, Whittier is authorized to incur. So if a yes vote happens, right? So this is what a yes vote is, and Ethan just went through. There is no funding mechanism right now attached to a yes vote. Okay. When we've done school projects, I'm sure you have in your cities and towns, Ames just built a new school, Pawtucket was just built a new school a little while ago. When those go to town for vote, okay, you are voting to not only approve the project, but you're also approving the funding at the same time. This is not the case. You are voting on the project, okay? Now, once you vote on the project, it's a yes. And now all 11 cities and towns have to figure out how they pay for it. I know it seems backwards, but that's how it works, all right? A yes vote means we're moving forward with this. 11 cities and towns figure out how to pay for it because you're going to get a bill. In Newburyport's case, we're going to get a $30 million bill, $60 million overpriced over the length of any kind of debt exclusion, okay? So all district municipalities incur a financial obligation based on the capital cost application formula, which we've said is based on the current population of your school district, not the amount of kids that you're sending to Whittier. Those other projects that I showed earlier, you know, Essex, Tri-County, they're paying for their schools by the amount of students going to the school from each of the cities and towns, all right? So again, it's different. The Whittier setup is different than everything that we've seen. Except like Diamond, Votech in Fall River was set up that way. So this is what the warrant reads. So you're going to get into the ballot box and you're going to read all this kind of legal mumbo jumbo about like what a yes vote is, what a no vote is. I just wanted to read this to you. So this is what the warrant says. The district acknowledges that the MSBA grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on the need determined by the MSBA, and any project cost that the district incurs in excess of any grant approved by or received from the MSBA will be the sole responsibility of the district, okay? So I think that's important just so you know, it's so great that MSBA is willing to give this money for this project, but it's basically saying if this project goes even higher, it's gonna fall on the 11 cities and towns, okay? So that's important. I just wanna point out there is a yes committee here. I think some of them are here tonight. Thanks, guys, for coming. They do have a Yes for Whittier campaign. If you want to get some information from them, I'm sure they'll be outside afterwards. I just want to quote, is Lenita Dykes here? She's the campaign manager for them. Lydia Dykes, some people know her from the report. I just wanted to quote her. She was quoted in the Eagle Tribune. Dykes said the Yes for Whittier Municipal Ballot Initiative Committee was formed and funded by the Laborers Union Local 175 based in Methuen and the project's general contractor, Consigli. So that's important just because Consigli is the one who's been kind of getting them through this process. So when you get in the MSBA program, you have to pick a path of like how you want to proceed through it. So in this case, Whittier chose construction management at risk. So this means the contractor is awarded the project before the design is complete, okay? So Consigli is the one leading them through this process, right? I guess that's all I'll say about that, but that's just something that people should know about. Okay. So a yes vote impact on local communities. I think Ethan essentially just did this, but again, a yes vote means that cities and towns have to go back and figure out how we pay for this, right? You can either do a debt exclusion, you can, so that's important. Let me just say that real quick. So again, typically on a city or town project, you go out for one vote and you decide both of them right there, right? I want the project, I'm gonna pay for it. This would need 2 votes. So we're all going out to vote on January 23rd, but if cities and towns need a debt exclusion to pay for it, if it's a yes, then we gotta all set up another vote, and we all gotta go out and get it and do it all over again. Okay, so that's just important. There would be multiple votes. Now the long-term impact, again, it could affect city and town's bond rating. Those are all things that I'm not gonna get into, but again, those are things that you should consider looking forward. How does this affect individual cities and towns? Which is why it's great we have a member or elected official or a representative from each of the 11 cities and towns here tonight. So if you do have specific questions around your town and how this project could impact it, that's what the question and answer session is going to be for after this. Okay. Now what does a no vote mean? A no vote means we're not moving forward with the project. Plain and simple. Okay? There's nothing else attached on that ballot. Okay? Nothing else kicks in. We don't get a bill for something else after that day. That means the project has stopped, okay? So, I mean, that's what it is. I think there's been some language out there about going right into a renovation. That might be the path that Whittier chooses to go on. I do think, though, that's something that would need to be decided, all right, after the January 23rd vote. I think it is important to note, though, that any kind of renovation can't just be rolled into an assessment and go to cities and towns, okay? Cities and towns every year have the ability to vote on that assessment, okay? So again, Whittier is not self-funded.
Whittier is here, though.
What's up?
Whittier is here. Present. We're all right here. We are Whittier.
So Whittier isn't self-funded, which means, hey, this is just informational. It just means that they would have to go to cities and towns, which is what cities and towns have been asking for, okay? That's what a no vote means. Okay, I'm done with the vote, January 23rd. So now we would like, I'm going to turn it over to Joe DeBase. Do you want to take this?
All right, so we have representatives from all 11 cities and towns here, and I think we want to hear from those cities and towns. So I think Mayor Gove from Amesbury is here. Did you want to say anything at all?
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everyone, for being here. I just think it's really notable that there are representatives and members from all 11 communities in the room. Thanks to Mayor Reardon for organizing this. I know that it was something you really wanted to make happen because of the questions you were getting in New Report, but opening it up to the rest of us has obviously been of interest. So all that I will add is to make sure you're looking for that data and those charts from your communities. You should know about what your debt schedule looks like. It should be in your city or town budget book. So familiarize yourself with that information, that debt schedule, the impact on your tax bill, the impacts on your tax rate. And there's a great data bank on the state's website. The DOR has a division called the Division of Local Services. There's almost too much information on there. You can kind of get lost. But there's 2 different stats in there that I think are really important and for me, really impact the decisions that I make. And so there's obviously our local tax rate, and you can look at all 11 communities. And Amesbury is at the top of that. And you hear a lot of people talk about Amesbury's taxes being really high. So if you look at our tax rate, we're at the top of all 11 communities. And then there's also a stat that they track, which is our tax bill as a percentage of our income. So they take our average income for the community and they calculate that through our average property value and our tax rate. And Amesbury's at the top of that too. So really familiarize yourself with the data and the numbers for your community, what it would do to the bill, what it would do to the tax load for your community. For us, it increases our debt by over 70% for what we're carrying now. We're carrying much longer term than Newburyport because we have recent debt that we just incurred for our new school. And for some of you, that's going to be the case too. So it's going to look different for each community, but again, take some time to dig into those numbers and ask questions, and I'm happy to take questions, but those are two stats and many more that you can find online.
Thank you. We have some representatives from Georgetown. Anybody from Georgetown like to say something? In your name?
Hi, thank you. Amy Smith, Georgetown Select Board. I'd like to thank Mayor Reardon for arranging this. Oh, right up close, okay. And I'd like to thank Mayor Reardon for having this tonight. This is really helpful. I would just like to add and tell you what we're doing. We're getting the word out as much as possible about all these facts to our community. We don't have a paper. You know, all we have is social media. It's a lot of misinformation's out there. So our select board and our FinCom are putting together a fact sheet for our residents so they understand all the ramifications for a yes vote and a no vote. And I do apologize for our meeting that shut down the Whittier tour. That's it.
All right, anybody from, any other representatives from Groveland? Just say who you are.
Ed Watson, Board of Selectmen. Right now in Groveland, we haven't got any contingency plans if this doesn't pass. It'll be a drastic cut to services if this is turned down. As far as an override, it'll be real tough for the town of Groveland. We're already paying for a new Pentucket Regional School, and we don't have any way of paying for it if the override doesn't pass. If this is a yes vote, then it'll come up for an override, and we don't have any funding. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Someone from Haverhill? Is there a representative from Haverhill here like this? Okay. Ipswich?
Hello, everyone. Thank you. My name is Mike Doherty. I'm the representative on the Ipswich Select Board for the town of Ipswich. Thank you, Mayor Reardon and the city of Newburyport for hosting this important venue tonight. I don't think there's anyone from Ipswich, so I'm not going to be getting any questions, but I would like to just say that, like our neighbors, we share frustrations with our neighboring communities regarding this project, right? Now more than ever, we need to be supporting Voc Tech schools, okay? There's a lack of resources, there's a lack of man and woman power to make sure that we have people in the trades right now, and that's evident. But we need to do it responsibly. And you know, as local leaders, our constituents look to us to make sure that we're able to do smart fiscal planning, right? Because the tax base is a limited resource. It's not a faucet that we can just turn on and have the money flow. And we've seen some of the numbers up here and they're staggering. And like every other community, Ipswich has its needs that need to be met locally between public safety, our own local education, infrastructure, environmental concerns, etc. And you know, as local leaders, we're looked upon to do stuff like put together a 5-year capital plan and put together strategic planning committees and look out 20 years into the future to see where our finances are going to be. And to have a project like this dropped in our laps with not that much notification is unfortunate, something that we're grappling with. And you know, the select board in Ipswich hasn't taken an official position on the matter. But we have expressed our concerns. We've expressed our concerns about the lack of a funding mechanism to be able to pay for it. You know, I would like to see us work with our legislative delegation to see if there's a way that we can get some sort of funding mechanism. Maybe we can get additional resources from the state in addition to the MSBA to help offset the costs, right? But, you know, it's a thing that we're all struggling with, and I appreciate the mayor putting this venue together so we can express those concerns. I appreciate the students coming out from Whittier to voice their support. You know, and there's really no right or wrong answer for this. All you can do when you go to the ballot box is take a look at the numbers, take a look at the facts, see where we're at, and make the best decision that you can make. And some people are going to vote yes because they want to make sure that the school moves forward in this capacity, and some people are going to want to vote no so that the project can pause and we can think of alternative ways to move forward. But that's kind of where we're at. But again, thank you all for coming out tonight.
And there will be an opportunity for questions and answers after we're done with elected representatives. Is someone from Merrimack here?
Sorry, instead of climbing over everyone, I'm going to stay here. So I'm Chris Manny. I'm the Merrimack Select Board Chair. Thank you again, Mayor Reardon, for bringing everyone together tonight. I think this is an incredibly important step in the process. And I think, as my colleague from Ipswich just alluded to, really what we want is everyone to come make sure that they vote, right? I think people are going to feel strongly on the yes side. People are going to feel strongly on the no side. But I think it's really important for the elected officials of our local cities and towns to make sure you have the information so you can make that decision for yourself. So for the folks that are here from Merrimack, thank you. I love you guys for coming. I do want to leave you with two facts. Up on that board, financials were put up there that this would be $20.4 million for the town of Merrimack and almost $700,000 of annual assessment. This would require a debt exclusion. This would require an override to be funded. If not, you can go on our website and see how you would cut $700,000 from the budget, and you would see that those cuts would be deep. We're talking about essential services that are feeding our folks, keeping our folks safe, and making sure our children get educated. So I just ask everyone, regardless of what city or town you come from, please make sure you go vote, and before you do so, get educated on the choice that you're about to make. Thank you, everyone.
Someone from Newbury?
Thank you. I am Alicia Greco, the chair of the Select Board in the town of Newbury. I would like to thank Mayor Reardon and the city of Newburyport for hosting this event. I would like to echo my colleagues in my surrounding communities. Ipswich has said it very well, as has Merrimack. I'm not going to go into what this is going to mean for the town of Newbury because it's different for each of us, and depending on exactly how the cost of the program comes in, it will be matters when the project, if approved, goes out to bid. But I would like to echo that everyone get educated on what this means for you. If you have any questions for the town of Newbury, you can reach out. Somebody will get back to you, and there will be time for a Q&A after this. So, thank you.
All right, we have a number of representatives from Newburyport. Anybody from the Newburyport community here like to say anything? Councilor Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I think everything's been stated very well. The one piece I do want to add is I get a lot of emails from residents saying, how did we not know about this? And all I could say, being on budget and finance, we do hear a lot about the plans for Whittier. The one thing that I'm starting to appreciate is that capital improvement formula. And there was one other community that actually does also pay capital that I found based on total students in the district. What I thought was interesting is their vote was actually done town by town and not district-wide, which seemed to make a lot of sense. One of the things and the reasons was that we went with district-wide is that it takes politics out of the vote. But I have to tell you, as elected officials or as those who are on the select boards, we are the closest to knowing what is fiscally happening in our communities. So to me, it's not just the, having a building done, but also the fiduciary responsibility overall as a community that we want to exercise just to get the best thing we can for all the kids, all the communities. Thank you.
Anyone else from the Newburyport, Connie Preston?
Hi, everyone. My name is Connie Preston. I am a city councilor here in Newburyport. Firstly, water everywhere down here. Firstly, I want to say I'm very supportive of vocational schools. I don't have children of my own, but my nephew, whom I cherish, recently graduated from a vocational school, and it absolutely made all the difference for him to be able to move out of the public school system into vocational school, not here in the area in upstate New York. But having said that, I've really taken a lot of time and tried very hard. Can you hear me better? Okay. To be very thoughtful and objective in the information as it pertains to this project. And at the end of the day, what I'm left with, based on logic, is that 11 city and town municipal leaders can't have gotten this wrong. It's, clearly there was not effective communication from Whittier leadership to the communities, and now we're finding ourselves on our back heels trying to figure out how to pay for this. And I think Councilor Khan did a great job of saying, ultimately, we see the need for Whittier, and the kids at Whittier absolutely need a better school. I plan to be there on Saturday. I have not seen it for myself. I've seen the pictures that Whittier has presented, and clearly there's a major problem, and we need to build a better school for these kids. But we need to do it in a responsible way that we can afford, in a way that doesn't make us cut our own school budgets. We have 2,300 kids going to Newburyport Public Schools, 29 kids going to Whittier. We will have to cut our public school budgets here if we go forward with this project. We will have to cut our services. That means DPS, that means fire, that means police. We need to do this in a way that's very responsible. We need to be able to work with Whittier leadership and find a way that works in a phased manner for all of us. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from Newburyport who wants to speak? Any of the representatives? Ed Cameron, Councilor Ed Cameron.
Thank you. Councilor Ed Cameron from Newburyport. I know you've heard a lot from Newburyport, and thank you, Mayor, for pulling this together. The facts matter, so there's a lot of emotion in this, and I know we all want to do our best for all of our kids in any of the 11 schools, and certainly for the kids that are going to Whittier. So everything that's been said, so as voters, get yourselves educated. Hopefully, whether this is a yes or a no vote, ultimately we've got to find a way to get this through and make it work. We definitely acknowledge the need for improvements in the Whittier School. I'll be on that tour as well. I haven't been there in a number of years, but let's stick to the facts, try to keep the emotion out of it, try to problem solve and get us to a good place. Thank you.
Raleigh? Any representative from Raleigh wish to speak?
Good evening. My name is Cliff Pierce. I'm the chair of the Raleigh Select Board. I guess we're in a different position because last night the Board of Selectmen voted in favor of voting no on this project. This has been an education for me. Before this happened, I would not have guessed that a capital improvement project such as this could be imposed on a town without a debt exclusion, because that's always been our case, and it's a case for the vast majority of projects, public construction projects in Massachusetts. But who would have thought that it's okay to do this for vocational schools? But like I said, it's been an education. The options for complying with a yes vote they're too drastic to even consider. we will require cuts in our budget if there's a yes vote. There's no doubt about it. Cuts to the fire department for basic services that residents expect, and they reasonably have a right to expect. Cuts to Triton Regional School District, which is also in need of a renovation. The town can't afford to have 2 of these massive projects approved and paid for. We just can't do it. What is wrong with people? What's wrong with the process? And we come here, and this meeting is mostly stacked with representatives of the yes meeting. You're making my case. If this was a fair agreement, that would be different. But it's an unfair agreement. I'm mad. I'm sorry. I am mad. So one of the suggestions, well, we can take our rainy day fund. This is not a rainy day. This is a capital expense. In Raleigh, we've worked hard to build up our rainy day fund. And how does a debt exclusion work anyway? The project is going to be already approved. So we'll have to convince voters in Raleigh, yes, give us more money for a debt exclusion because the Whittier project has been approved and we need to pay for it. Is someone from Whittier going to come to the Raleigh town meeting to try and sell this project like is usually the case with public construction projects? I have a sinking feeling that we're never going to see Maureen Lynch again if the yes vote is approved. We'll never see her again. This is, I know, and this is not about keeping our children safe. This is about I'm sorry, but it's not about that, and I think you know that.
Everyone's going to have a chance to speak. Excuse me, sir. Everyone's going to have a chance to speak. Everyone's going to have a chance to speak. All right. Is there anyone from Salisbury who would like to speak?
Well, I cannot top that. I just made my job a lot easier. As a petitioner of the Salisbury Select Board, we have not taken a position on this. The only position that, oh, sorry, Michael Colburn, Salisbury Selectman, Vice Chair. We have not formally took a position. Our position is mostly trying to get the information out so people are informed and they can make their own decisions on this matter. But it does, I mean, we don't have the $700,000 plus in our budget. So with no funding mechanism, the whole town is very concerned. It's extremely concerning how this project has gone forward. Their lack of communication is unprecedented. I think Whittier had tried, and they thought they were trying to get the information out, but I think they lived in a bubble when they were trying to do this. When you have 11 communities, one community probably knew a little bit more because they have 68% of the school system, but the other 10 communities can't be wrong. You have all us elected officials, managers, mayors, none of us knew nearly as much information as should have been. In 2000, with all due respect, sir, you have your time, this is my time. Well, you're being disrespectful. And when you're being disrespectful, it makes me want to vote no on the project. I'm a yes vote right now, but you continue to be disrespectful to me, I'll vote no for no reason. I would be respectful to you, you be respectful to me. This is how a democratic process happens. That being said, I am a little concerned that, this is me personally not speaking as a board, that the construction company that is doing the project is behind the yes vote. That is extremely concerning. That tells me that the only reason why they want the yes vote, because they make money. That's extremely concerning. As a tradesman, I want the school because I know the need that we need kids, young kids coming up working in our industries. But Mayor Grove said on December 13th, these kids will not be able to afford to live in our 11 communities. That's what all us elected officials have to ponder and find ways to make sure our young kids who go to the school can live in our communities. Because I can tell you what's happening. Most of those kids that I know are in Salisbury are moving to New Hampshire. They're not living in Massachusetts anymore because of the past expenditures that many of my parents, since I've been here since the Pilgrims, on both sides of my family, Newburyport and Salisbury. So no one can tell me of what has gone on in Salisbury and Newburyport, considering we've been here since the beginning. So I'm a little concerned about the yes vote, who's behind it, and who's doing it. Second, the debt exclusion, overrides. Is Whittier and the yes vote and the construction company that's making money off this project going to be with us after January 23rd? Haven't heard that yet. Have not heard that yet. Maureen Lynch said it once, but where's the company? Where's the union who's over there strong-arming us as we speak? You're going to be here after January 23rd? You're going to be here after January 23rd. You're going to come to our town meetings. I don't think so. I don't think so. So, that being said, I hope you are, because we're going to need your help. Because if you're not there, we will be closing libraries. We will be closing libraries. We will be cutting police stations. We will be cutting fire departments, which people don't understand. When you start cutting that, you're going to start having overtimes occurring. So then you have to going to cut deeper. So I hope if people decide this is the 11 communities, taxpayers' choice. It's not all us elected officials' choice. It's their choice at the end of the day. And I support either way, yes or no, because the people have spoken. As long as the people speak, I'm good with it. As Salisbury, we're looking around $700,000+ that we don't have. Again, my whole stick on this is how it's not being funded when the vote yes. And I think that's most everyone down here, that's our biggest problem with it. Thank you.
West Newbury? Anyone from West Newbury want to speak? That's all right, I need my steps.
Wendy Reed, I'm the chair of the Select Board in West Newbury. I don't have much to add to what's already been said. We'd like to thank Mayor Reardon also for putting this program together. There's so much information here that I wasn't aware of, and so we're really concerned about our residents being educated. We're holding a public information session next week similar to this, so we appreciate the lead on this. I guess I would just close in saying that support for vocational schools and programming and concern about this project are not mutually exclusive. I mean, you can believe in both things. So I think it's incumbent on all of us as elected officials and taxpayers and voters to really look at the facts behind this and make an educated decision. Thank you.
All right, we're going to open it up to Q&A. Oh, it's someone from West Newbury? All right. I'm going to make an executive decision here. I'm going to let the folks over here that we yell. I would like to make sure that you keep your tone civil. No yelling, no accusing, just civil conversation, please. Thank you.
Mike Gagliardi, and I'm the business manager with the Laborers Union. And for those from Salisbury, yes, we will be there. I did ask to present at this meeting, but we weren't able to. And when we listened to the communities that had nothing to do with any of this, they appoint school board members to this board, and because they don't know how to manage their own employees to come back and report to them, shame on them. When I listen to Newburyport, when I listen to Rowley, when I listen to Ipswich, and everybody says that, you know, it's going to hurt our schools. Well, the reason is that school has raw sewage backing up into the schools. It has deficient sewer treatment plants. It has no sprinkler systems in it with all of the fire suppression systems. And all of the communities say, we want to fund our own education. Well, this is your education. You voted to be a part of this school board, and you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself saying, I want to take care of my kids in my white community, and I don't want to take care of the kids that come from the poor community because they might be black or brown. You people should all be ashamed of yourself to send kids to a school that has no fire suppression system.
There was a woman over here that was going to speak. Who do you have a question for? Okay, a general question about funding.
Julie Menon from Newburyport. So I understand that if the vote goes no, it doesn't immediately go to repairs or renovating the school. But if it does, it looked to me from the numbers up there that it was $300+ million to renovate, which is not very different from the $300 million that it would cost all of us, all of our 11 communities, to build a new school. How will we fund that? I mean, because those things have to happen. I'm just curious.
So it's okay. No, it's a good question, right? And that's why we're trying to stay vote specific tonight too. But you are absolutely right. But to me, and this is just me, citizen hat on, right? To me, you've got a yes vote locks us into this new building, okay? A no vote stops that process, and then hopefully it starts another one. So to me, it's about options. So Whittier could go back to the drawing board and hopefully come back with a more reasonable ask for a new school. Whittier could have a plan that will take many years to do renovations to the building. It's just about options. So again, don't get confused with the vote that we have to take in 2 weeks and then what happens next, because hopefully if the next process, Whittier and the 11 cities towns can work together and find a path forward. That's what I think.
Greg Noyce, I'm on the Amesbury School Committee. A couple of years ago, I was appointed to the Whittier School Committee. I'm sorry that you're leaving. I did talk to my school committee about it. I resigned from Whittier a year ago because building this project is incompatible with success in the Amesbury District school system. A couple things I want to point out. One, Whittier does an incredibly good job educating our kids, you know? They have pretty much completely overcome the learning loss from the pandemic within a year of it being over. And education is not a building, and a building is not an education. When we talk about this at $445 million, we're not talking about the interest. When we factor the interest in, it's more than $750 million, okay? I'm sorry. Everybody here recognizes the fact that we will be laying off teachers, firefighters, DPW people if the Whittier building goes through. I'm sorry that it has come to this and there are such hard feelings, but good Lord, this has to be approached incrementally. And frankly, Whittier has done what every district does when they get on the MSBA wait list. They have put off capital improvements. I voted to allocate the entire $695,000 in their capital budget last year to the Whittier project as opposed to putting it into repairs and things like that. It's a bad place we're in, but we cannot sacrifice our children. And Whittier will still provide an exemplary education in the building they're in. They have demonstrated they can do it because they're doing it now.
Thank you for this informative session. My issue that I have is that upon entry, you assumed Whittier wasn't here, which I then cordially corrected. We are. Many of us, especially residing in Newburyport, have spent over a decade knowing we wanted to send our child to Whittier Tech over Newburyport High, no offense. There were reasons for that, and I am not someone that just shows up to a meeting and speaks off the cuff. And to act as though we need to be educated before this vote is so devaluing to listen to presume that we're not already educated. It's part of the reason I don't want my son here. And I lived here, spent my life here. Those should be the voices that do matter. And my son worked really hard to be whatever that small percentage was from Newburyport. That's all allocated and done a specific way. But this is really simple. It's one vote. Yes or no, do we need the school or not? And everybody's muddying all of this with some filibustering information on your own agenda, which I can tell you from jump, I watch it happen 5 nights a week in this city alone is all I can speak for on that. It's a whole lot of blasting off. $2,000 for Adirondack chairs for tourists for 2 months in Newburyport. I don't care if they want an ugly, uncomfortable chair. I'm the one supporting the local businesses all year when they go home, when they're done filling the streets with their traffic. I'm the one who's a first responder. I'm the one who taught my own kids during COVID while I also went to school, while I also was 911. So if anybody should be speaking, it should be someone like myself. When you're talking about budgets for fire department and PD, please stop. Just stop. So much of that is so outlandish. We're not seeing any of what you're referencing on any first responders. So please, I mean, unless those people want to show up for you, I would question why they would speak on behalf of someone that says that. But you at Jump have misinformation here, and you've had it on so many other things. And my question is, just for this one city, let's use it hypothetically, Newburyport, how many widows, widowers, and seniors have you granted an actual tax deduction for? How many even know that it's available to them? Because I'm a widow, and I went to your city. I asked for that deduction in 2021, you denied me. 2022, you denied me. I'm just saying, if you gave those deductions out to what is heavily your resident area, you're not the same as Ipswich, I see that. But there are relevant things that are missing from this presentation right now. And some of those things could have been alleviated years ago, but that money was spent on projects that are still not done. And I trust that the oversight of the state and 11 other cities has eyes on what Whittier Tech is doing, and I can guarantee you, as a widow who pays her bills on her own with 1 child at Whittier and 2 separate with 1 in college, I would happily pay this. Because at least I know it's tax money going where it says it's going. And I don't know that the 13 viewers at your city hall meetings know what they're actually invested in. No one knows anything. Have a good night.
Could you just, excuse me, could you identify yourself and say where you're from?
Cordially known as Port Mom, Jessica Stone.
Oh, I got someone over here. If we could try and keep our comments to just a couple of 3 minutes, that'd be great.
Yes, I'm Dale Williams. I live in Newbury, part of the Triton District. 3 concerns. One is on the state level. They paid for this facility back in 1970, and yet they're not willing to step up and be a larger portion of the funding for a new school. Number 2, the formula for the capital cost with 68% of the population coming from Haverhill, is so skewed compared to the other 10 communities that realistically, trying to beat Haverhill, who gets 65% of their school funding through Chapter 70, Triton gets 18% of our school funding through Chapter 70. The richer towns are being asked to pay more and more and more. And I feel that this vote has very little chance of being no because of the skewed population of the city of Haverhill, where this school has the dominant population. Third, my concern is that if it is a yes vote, Triton is going to be faced with cuts. We're already forced into additional SPED funding, which is a good thing, but the state requires more and more, and they back away from the funding of it. And not to say I don't support vocational education, but a $500 million building, not to mention the financing of it and the assessments every year, will really set back the general consensus that general education in our towns is important. That's what we're asked to do. We expand that beyond into vocational and other type of schools is a good thing if the money exists. But the funding formula doesn't exist, the money doesn't exist, and my fear is that all the education in all these other communities is going to degrade, and we will have a vocational school, maybe the exemplary across the country. And that's my concern, that the rest of them, the majority of the kids that go to schools in our district will be hurt by this to help those that go to Whittier. Thanks.
All right, I'm going to try and get to everyone, but I'm really getting my steps.
My name is Elaine Bucher, and I am a former Amesbury Schools Committee member. I also am a teacher at Whittier Tech. I'll tell you right now that I'm a little bit disturbed by the fact that so many towns, Amesbury being one of them, is talking about the fact that they have their schools that they've been building, and we don't have the money to pay for Whittier. I mean, it's been said before, but Whittier is your school. I mean, it is a public school. And the fact is that it is just as much a responsibility as when I was on the school committee, Amesbury public schools were my responsibility. The fact remains that I also feel a little bit upset that I'm being targeted because I did too good a job. I mean, Whittier's done a great job dealing with crappy facilities. I'm sorry that I've done such a great job with my crappy facilities. It doesn't mean that we don't need better facilities, but the fact is that I had to move my classroom out of one room into another room multiple times because the heat didn't work, or because the heat was on so high that we couldn't even turn it off when it was warm outside, or because the electricity went off in my classroom. And I teach English. There's very little I need. The technical areas need a whole lot more. And when that's disrupted, when we don't have the technology we need, when we don't have the ability to plug in the equipment that's necessary, as you can tell, I teach English. I don't know what's necessary in many of the shop areas. But that's a major problem, and it interrupts their learning. It's part of what makes a technical school so great, and we need to make sure that they have the facilities they need for that. And yes, some of you may be sending very few students to Whittier, but I bet you need a plumber and an electrician, and that's what we are creating for you. That workforce that is help propelling your schools. And the fact is, I have 3 daughters who went to Amesbury's public schools. And I'll tell you right now, my students graduating this year and taking a job in the trades are gonna be more able to afford a house in Amesbury than my college-educated daughters.
All right, sorry, I have to run over here again. Somebody over here wanted to speak. No, someone down here. Yep, there she is.
Hi, I'm Kate Hubbard from Newburyport, 20-year taxpayer with no children, gladly paying for school and education. But I have a question specific to the number and how the project amount was put together. Were there competitive bids? Were there options? Were there different scenarios that were played out and be able to be discussed? I have no idea.
Is there anyone over there that could answer that question?
Well, so I'm just going to say.
Shouting out doesn't really help, please.
So again, we wanted Whittier to be here to be part of this presentation, and they declined to come. So I would say, take that question, reach out to Whittier. You're right. That's what our questions are. Because I'll just reiterate again. They got in the MSBA program in 2019. So from there to where we are now, the 11 cities and towns weren't part of the process. So I can't speak to how the contractor got to a $500 million school. I can't. But I would say Whittier's doing a tour this weekend, Saturday. Check it out. And again, hopefully they're answering questions from people that have them too, okay?
Did Mayor Gove want to say something down there?
I don't even know where Joe is. I will just add, this is the presentation right from Whittier, and this is part of the MSBA process that they do explore 3 options. So I can tell you that because this is their slide. They did explore a code upgrade, a renovation addition, or a new construction. So they did go through, I can tell you they went through that process, and the 3 numbers associated with those were not dramatically different. And that, as they explained it to us, is helped inform their decision as a school building committee to move forward with the new construction, that with all the other implications and impacts that they would have, the new construction was not significantly different in price. So that is part of the MSBA process, and they went through that process.
Okay, the next question's up here. The cameraman, if they want to come over here.
Hi, my name is Julio Fuentes. I reside in Newburyport, and I actually just have some follow-up questions. The first being, well, it doesn't sound like we have the answer for this, but I am familiar with the construction management process, and while it might be one contractor that's involved, they should still have an opportunity to have others vet that and cut into that cost. So I don't believe this 400 and something number. That's just me having some experience. I believe it's lower. The next thing is a question. If there is a no vote, and let's just, without anyone shouting, say we can work towards other options and think about other options, a new school at a cheaper price, what happens to the state funding? What sort of delay does that put on the state funding?
So everyone yelling, but I will just
Thank you.
reiterate what they're saying. So a yes vote, no vote, if the no vote happens, then that funding is gone. They're going to give it to somebody else. But Whittier can re-enter the MSBA program. It's not like a one-time and you're forever done. It would be a process. I'm not saying it's not. It would be an absolute process to get back into it. But you also could get a state earmark. You could get a federal earmark. There are other funding options besides the MSBA program that you could pursue if a yes or no vote happens.
All right, I've got an idea. People that want to ask a question, if they could come up right up in this area, it'll save a lot of time of me running back and forth.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Cameron Bennett. I'm a 2010 graduate of Whittier Tech. I am from Newburyport, Massachusetts, born and raised. I have a lot of issues with what's been going on with the group up front here, mainly because of the fact that we have a bunch of elected officials telling people basically to vote no. It's this big, huge contingency that really hasn't been involved in this project whatsoever, other than a war of words either on social media to regular citizens or just blasting off on the local newspaper, which is great and all. But for example, I do have a question for Sean Reardon, which is I would like to know how long he has known about this project And I would also like to know actual numbers rather than every day in the paper having different headlines representing different facts, because you want to be transparent with the voters, yet you're constantly misleading them with several different facts and headlines. That's one question. Another thing I wanted to state was I went to Newburyport Public Schools and I didn't fit in whatsoever. The education is poor. It wasn't until I got to Whittier where I actually found my place in life. Have great teachers and representatives of the community that actually care about their students. That if I went to Newburyport High School, I can tell you right now, I would not have job placement. I'd probably be driving around on a fork truck or jackhammering somewhere. Whereas I went to a trade school that actually helped me find a job in my community that I represent, of all places. Which to me, you leave out the industrial park in Newburyport, which brings in a lot of revenue for the town via taxes. So my question for you, Reardon, was how long have you known about this project, and what are the actual figures Newburyport will be paying, not estimated guesses on your behalf?
So Cam, I don't know if you missed the presentation that we went through the finances, but these are the numbers, okay? These are the numbers, these are them. And just when I found out about the project was the meeting November 2022 when I went in with all the other city officials.
Sean Reardon, did you know about this project in 2019?
What's that?
You, prior to becoming mayor, were you or were you not an advocate for Whittier Tech?
I was on the school committee in 2019.
So you didn't know about this project prior to 2022?
No.
Okay. Hold on. Are you sure about that?
Are you referring to something? I honestly, I don't know.
All right.
I'm being serious.
No, I am too. I'm asking if you have an example. Did I sign a Yes for Whittier campaign in 2019?
Did you go to any school committee meetings prior to 2022 where you would have known about the project?
Oh, well, I mean, it wasn't brought up in a school committee meeting.
That's a bunch of crap because
Okay.
I participated in those meetings that you were president.
But what was, all right, thank you, Cam. I will say, just as a weird Newburyport. No, hey Cam, if you've got stuff, send it to me. I have no knowledge of in 2019. All right, let's calm it down. We all wanna get to our questions. Cam, hey, I've known you a long time. If you have something that you can tell me that I was at, I'd be happy to say, sure, I was at that meeting. But I am telling you right now, I have no recollection of being told about this project. I don't know what that has to do with the vote, Cam, and I don't know what that has to do with the numbers that we've talked about. What's that? All right, can we go to the next question? That'd be great. Thanks, Kim.
Hi, my name is Leah. I am from the town of Ipswich. I'm actually on the Ipswich Finance Committee. I'm here representing myself tonight. One of the biggest problems, not just in Ipswich, but in other towns, is the formula that has been mentioned multiple times that goes into figuring out how towns pay their capital costs. And I have looked into the process that's outlined in the school agreement to petition the local town, get 5% of voters to bring forward an amendment. And I think that whether we move forward with a yes vote in January or not, if we were able to amend the school agreement so that it is based on the student enrollment, maybe over a 10-year running average, that would be more palatable to many of the communities. Not leaving the agreement, not doing anything to disparage it, but just amending it to make it more intuitive to the people who live in the district and more palatable to the taxpayers. So I do have a question, and that is anyone else pursuing that as an option, working with perhaps the state to bring forward an amendment to the agreement? So I understand if we move forward with a yes, we're still on the hook for this project, but going forward, we have the chance to change how that calculation.
I would just say, regardless of the vote, I think we're very much, all the communities are into looking at amending this agreement. You know, again, the yes or no vote, we're in the project. If you're at the yes vote, we'd still like to look at amending that agreement. The no vote, I would say, probably gives us a little bit more time. But I think I can only speak for Newburyport. We are certainly looking into all legal options around and working with the state on the current acts of 1967. Yeah, that's a good point too. So if someone did try to, of the 11 communities, tried to leave, you would be on the hook still for the capital cost, but it would only be the capital debt that is incurred that year. Okay, so it depends on what's been incurred that year. Any district that tried to leave, any community that tried to leave the Whittier district, that's what they'd be on the hook for. If that's incurred this year, yes.
Sir, respectfully,
You're right.
my
So-
name's Nicholas Keedian. I'm a
You're
Haverhill
right.
resident.
Yeah, wait.
If you,
Can you just pause 1 second? Cliff just wants me to correct. So if they did incur the whole debt this year, then a district would be on the hook for it if they were trying to leave the district. So I just think, you're right, Cliff.
So one thing I encourage everyone to do, go on buildingthefuturewhittier.com, scroll to the bottom.
Hey,
will
just so
see
you know,
a-
guys, thank you for coming. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You can't wave signs in a public building for a campaign. If you want to go outside and jump up and down Low Street, go for it. All right, thank you. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted.
You're good. At the bottom of the website, you can enter your town, what your house's assessed value is at, and see what it is. Earlier today, I, along with many of my colleagues from Haverhill, ran a comparison. We went through if we lived in Haverhill. So if you say you're in if you say you're in Newburyport with an $825,000 home value, I'm still paying more for my $450,000 house in Haverhill. So I'm still paying more, and I'm paying for multiple schools versus the town cry of Newburyport, which is we have no money. I get it. No one wants to hear that taxes are going up, but coming from a student that graduated from Whittier back in 2016 and got to excel in the workplace for 10 years with having a minimal degree, and now, less than 10 years later, having a degree, being an educator at Whittier, I see a grave difference between the then and now. So with that, then and now, there comes a difference. With time as a homeowner, when you say you have 4 windows broken, you say, you can duct tape that, kick it down the road. In this scenario, you can say, we can duct tape some bricks. We can, throw some glue on it and maybe get it a couple more years, give up this fantastic MSBA financing that they're gonna give us free money, right? So we kick it down the road. It's 150% the cost, which is gonna cost everyone as taxpayers more dollars. I, for one, am a fan of education. I'm more than happy to pay the one night out for dinner a month that it will cost me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Eric White. I'm a resident of Newburyport. I'm also the city engineer. I've been a registered engineer since the late 80s. I'm here speaking on behalf as a resident. I want to thank Mayor Reardon for giving us this opportunity and all the city councils for showing up. My biggest concern with this is if anyone is going to move into a new house, what this is analogous to is moving into a new house that you pay for, but you had no involvement with the design, and you just move in and you live with the bill. That is unacceptable. I've been doing this for 30 years. This project should have gone through a community by community review from the feasibility study in 2014 up until final design. Even MassDOT did it for the Whittier Bridge. I've been involved with many, many projects that do that. That's a no-brainer. You go through the 25%, 50%, 75%, 90, PS&E. Everyone gets a chance to review it. I would have reviewed that feasibility study. I read it real quick before I got here. I would red mark all over that thing. They're making big deals out of things that's what you get with an old building that is not maintained. This does not need to go from zero to a new building for half $1 billion. I think I'm voting no only because people are asking me to vote yes for a product that I'm not convinced that we need. We need Whittier Tech. That's not the issue. We need Whittier Tech. The kids want to learn a trade. They don't care what's over their head. They want the trade. They want the new computer system. They want the new technology for teaching them. We can work with the existing school. I'd rather review the plans more carefully and then go from there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Beverly Stickles. I live in Newburyport. I'm also the medical assisting teacher at Whittier Tech. And I have been concerned from the get-go about the city of Newburyport's tone in terms of entitlement, okay? There's a lot of behavior about this is not my job, this is not my problem, this is not my bill. Well, let me tell you what Whittier does for the city of Newburyport. I am one of 24 shop teachers at Newburyport. If you have gone to the breast center, the GI center, cardiology, pediatrics, surgery, infectious disease, or any primary care doctor office in Newburyport, you probably saw one of my students. If you live in an old house, my last plumber was a Whittier grad. If you have a parent or a loved one in a nursing home in Newburyport, one of them is largely staffed by CNA students from the Whittier program. You have fancy boats that are along the shoreline. Those boats we teach marine technology. If you eat at Michael's, Harborside, or you go to Angry Donuts, there's a Whittier student there taking your order. If you want solar panels on your house, there are 4,000 short electricians in this state. Everybody here is acting like it's not their problem. I teach students of color in a room with no sprinkler system. No sprinkler system. I can't turn the heat on. I don't have heat. I bought a space heater. Okay? This is a school of excellence. The best kid in electronic technology in the country works in Rochester Electronics in Newburyport. The country. I had the #2 medical assistant kid in the state last year. Okay, we just got 3 kids into Simmons nursing program. I don't know if any of you know how competitive that is. So my question for you, Sean Reardon, because I got your email last Friday, was how many kids working dead-end jobs at TJ Maxx is the Frog Pond worth? How many kids going into gangs is a new community center worth? Okay?
Is that it? Oh.
No, I'm not done. This is a lecture, and I've earned that right because I'm a board-certified anesthesiologist that could be making 4 times as much money somewhere else, but I teach at a school where there are kids using welding and wood next to each other with no sprinkler system. So if you don't vote yes, then you need to figure out Plan B, because it's not safe. And these kids are your kids. This is a public school, and they're in your community making your businesses go.
So I don't know if you want me to answer, but I completely agree with everything you just said. I do. I completely agree. And I don't have the data on the other 2 things you asked about.
Thank you. My name's Anita Currier. I live in Newburyport. I'm also a 30-year vocational teacher, and I teach at Minuteman High School in Lexington. We just moved into a brand new building in 2020 that took 9 years to build. I looked at the old photographs of Whittier, and it looks like the exact same building that I was teaching in, which was unsafe, unhealthy, not ADA compliant. My question, and I don't think the quality and the importance of technical education is what's questioned here, and I would like to remind people that technical education is more than trades. Everyone thinks it's the construction arm of trades, but there's engineering, robotics, animal science, horticulture. Technical education unlocks kids' talents
expertise, and passion, and gives them a career pathway that when they graduate, they are going to college with purpose and focus, or they're going into work. My question, because I was very aware of the arduous process it took to build a $144 million school for 780 kids. Where are the sending community representatives during this process? It's daunting to me to think that this was just dropped in representatives of each community's laps. I know my superintendent shopped our project, and it took him 9 years to get it through. So my question is, where has everyone been? It is a district school. That's my question. I will say one thing, because I looked at the plans and I know my own school. The athletic fields were pretty elaborate, and that's no offense to athletics, but ours are serviceable, but we didn't spend the money there. We put it into the technical programs and we put it into the school. Thank you.
Did you want to respond, Mayor Reardon?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I don't, and thank you for your long service of teaching at Minuteman. I don't have a great answer for that. Like I said, I'm a pretty new mayor here. I think this was really eye-opening, especially to our school committees who actually appoint the members, right? So there's 2 members on each city for the Whittier Tech School Committee, and there's 1 from each town. And I can tell you that Michael Colburn's gonna come up after this, but I can just say, you know, except for them getting appointed to their positions, like we just had 2 people get appointed this year, we don't see them. And it's just, and that's not right. I mean, that was very eye-opening and all that. And we've already talked to them. They're gonna be very regular guests to our school committee meetings moving forward.
All right, I'd just like to point out, you know, we're scheduled for about 15 more minutes, so if people that have questions can be really succinct and quick, but
I would just like to answer, as Sean's a part of the city, we're a small town. I just want to answer, people don't understand the Whittier representatives are appointed by the school board committee. They are not appointed by the people who are actually running your communities. So I think that's probably why, you know, the labor representative over here was saying, oh, you guys got to make sure you run your town. The problem is the elected officials who run your town do not get any updates from the Whittier committee. They go to the school board committee, and the school board committee does not have to update the local officials. It is a broken process that we need to fix.
Joe, if I can just add to that, you know, you heard, I think, Mayor Reardon say this was really eye-opening for many of the communities. We ask for a lot of volunteers, right? I have over 35 boards and commissions. I serve as the chair of our school committee. But when we have an opening on our Whittier committee, which has happened over the last, I've only been in office for 4 years, it's really hard for us to find someone that raises their hand and says, I want to apply and be interviewed for this position. So we're lucky if we have one person. They're usually very connected to Whittier, which makes sense and is fine. I will say right now we have one of our 2 representatives has been very communicative to us, does have very deep roots at Whittier, but our other option is to have no voice at the table, to wait and have an empty seat. So if this is something that's caught your attention, think about that when you hear us say, hey, we need volunteers, we have openings on our boards and commissions, especially when it's something like this, whether it's school committee or a Whittier position, because it happens. People step down, they retire, they move away. You have to live in the community from which you represent on the Whittier district. So keep that in mind, and I think that's just, again, more context for you to understand how this could happen and this position that we're put in as cities and towns.
Jeannie Frash from Newburyport. I just had a quick question. I'm very, very much in favor of vocational schools. What happens to the students while the new school is being built? Because it's going to take I thought I read like 4 years or somewhere along that line. So if they don't have heat or they're unsafe now, I just worry, like, are they going to put more money into fixing up the existing school so that they can get through the next 4 years? Or just how does that work? I don't know.
Yeah, again, there's no one from Whittier here to answer that question. Any kind of renovation project would be it's going to be difficult because you're going to be renovating an active learning space. And apart from, everything else you mentioned about heat and things like that, we have capital improvement plans. We have a 5-year capital improvement plan that we try to chip away at each year. And it's difficult. Sometimes, I think 2 years ago, the schools had a lot of issues. We still have 2 roofs. We have a roof here and a roof at the high school. They're both it's about $6 million worth of renovations that we need to do that we've been trying to get funding for that just keeps getting kicked down the road. Whittier has a lot of needs as well. If you look at their capital plan, again, those things are on there. I think they've been doing it's great that they have the skills they've been kind of doing the work of banding in it and keeping the school afloat. But, again, that Whittier's going to have to hopefully come back and work with the districts if that is the direction they decide to go in.
Hello, my name is Annie Siliker. Sorry. I went to Newburyport schools. I live here. I've lived here my whole life. Sorry. I went to also River Valley Charter School, and I now am a senior at Whittier Tech. I study engineering technology, and I also work in the industrial park here at Rochester Electronics. And Mayor Sean Reardon, my question to you is, am I part of your community?
Yeah, yes. So yes, of course you are. Of course you are. And let me just tell you, everything I've put out to the public about this, I've really tried to be consistent. I am all for Whittier Tech. I have a problem with the finances of this plan. Plain and simple, that's it. I'm a former teacher. I started out in special ed. My parents are both teachers. I taught here in Newburyport. I taught at Triton. I got on the Newburyport School Committee. I am 100% for education, which you can see, this is why this is so tough to talk about. I went to the Whittier School Committee meeting, which again, I was the only one to show up. They only meet once a month. I went to their November meeting, okay? I went up there and got in front of them and said, why weren't we involved in this? I mean, we should be the ones, these elected officials, we should all be the ones advocating for this project at the state and federal level to get funding for this. We should all be working together, but we were left out. So again, you are absolutely part of my community, if that's your question. Do you have a follow-up?
I do.
Okay.
My follow-up is, why did you send a letter to my home address, as well as other Whittier students, letting me know that you need to do what's best for your/our community? Yet you are advocating to vote no. You have your social media picture as vote no with the Whittier Tech logo. Am I or am I not part of your community?
So yes again from the first part. And the second part, this is absolutely something I did, and I'm happy to share this letter publicly. I sent the same letter to all 29 kids because I knew that this is a terrible situation. I wanted each one of those kids to hear from me that I would be speaking out against this project. And it had nothing to do with them and the quality of the education. I think that's so valuable. But I took the time to write you and everyone else that goes to Whittier because I didn't want you to hear it from me in the paper or on social media. I wanted you to hear it from me first saying, hey, look, this, and I'm happy to share the exact content of that letter with everybody. It was meant to be private between you and me, but hey, if we want to talk about it. But hey, if you want to talk about it, I said, hey, look, this is an incredibly difficult topic and conversation that we're having. And it's very difficult. And I wanted you to know that this is nothing personal, but this is something to do with the finances. Every community has to think about how is this project going to impact them. And that's why we're trying to look at the finances and hopefully finding a way that we can move on from this. Water would be great right now. But
Jim Moran from Newbury. 2 issues. Do you really want to tear down the existing building? It's 356,000 square feet. That's equivalent to 8 acres of building. Is the new standard to tear down buildings every 50 years? The high school I attended is 75 years old today. Elementary school I attended is 100 years old today, and both of them are still operating the schools. The second issue is the agreement fair and reasonable, and does it need to be amended? Thank you.
Is there anyone down there that wants to give a quick answer? We've got 5 more people lined up here.
I would say yes. I mean, I think a big part
6.
in all this is amending this agreement, so yes.
My name is Jeff Walker, and I'm a long-term selectman in Newbury, and I was an educator, and I can go on, and I just want to express, normally speaking, a lot of the frustration that we feel as public officials is the fact that most of the time, when a new school is being built, especially police stations or any municipal construction, we are involved in the process from the beginning. And that's why we're reacting the way we are. It's not the fact that we don't appreciate what's being done at Whittier. And I just wanted people to really realize that, because it's very important. We work hard. It was sprung on us, and the cost is seemingly high. I don't know what the square footage is of the offices. I don't know what the square footages are, and we will find out. And one last thing. The fact that the 440 might not be capped at that is perplexing also. So we'll get in the process. We'll find out more. But I wish we had been in from the very start.
Good evening. My name is Steve Stanganelli. I'm from Amesbury. I happen to be a member of Amesbury City Council. I am not representing Amesbury City Council. I have sat on the Finance Committee for 8 years in one form or fashion. I have a couple of questions. One of them is, at one of the community meetings, Superintendent Lynch had mentioned that she had advised the various municipalities to set up a stabilization fund. She said she did this back in 2016. My understanding is that was the creation of a stabilization fund at Whittier only for the MSBA feasibility study. But she, not implied, but stated very affirmatively that she told every city and town to make a budget and a stabilization fund for this. I would like to know, how were we supposed to do this if we didn't have a number? That's question 1. Question 2, we are told that one of the parts of the project is a creation of an access road. Approximate cost somewhere over $9 million. My question is that on Whittier property or Haverhill property? The distinction is because would that be eligible for Chapter 90 funds as opposed to the 11 sending communities paying to build a road? I think it's kind of important to know that. And one of my final pieces is, if there is a no vote, and there is, as we understand, get to the back of the line, maybe reapply, but if there's a no vote and renovations need to be done, those renovations, those code upgrades do not necessarily, I would like to clarify, do those code upgrades need to be immediately done or not? Because my understanding is once you do 30% or more renovations, you trigger all of these various things, including ADA compliance. So for instance, would adding sprinkler systems trigger that 30% number? That information from Ms. Lynch at the City Council in November, when she presented to us, was not clear. You can stage project renovations in a way. And so my follow-up question to that is, how do we get a bite at the apple doing that? Does that require a 2/3 vote of each sending community's select board or town meeting, or in our case of Amesbury City Council? That's generally what I've been trying to get to. Whether that's our mayor or our host, whoever would like to take care of that, that'd be great.
Does anybody want to answer down there? Quickly?
I can be very quick. I don't think there's anybody here who could answer any of those questions with certainty. Sorry.
So we have been talking about this with our city solicitor, and we've been told that it would take a 2/3 vote. It couldn't just be rolled into the assessments. They would actually have to come to each city and town to get that passed. But as far as the access road and things like that, yeah, we were confused about that as well. There are 3 projects: access road, wastewater treatment plant, and sprinkler system. But again, I think we'd have to work with Whittier and see what's that renovation proceed if it goes that route.
Hi, my name is Pam Wool from Newbury, and I really have no idea how I'm going to vote, but I do have a point of concern about how we're discussing this is when our leaders and elected people who I respect and appreciate say, this is, we're going to lay off teachers, we're going to lose police, etc. That's not exactly necessarily the case, because what they need to be saying is, if we don't pass a debt exclusion, those things will happen. Okay? Because we can pass debt exclusions, and then those things will not happen. So that's one point. I think this needs to be rephrased. Otherwise, we'll be really screwed if you've created an even more negative atmosphere. Okay. Second of all, I do have concerns about the process and the costs. On the other hand, I don't trust our communities to go ahead and pass this if it comes around again at a lower cost, just because of the climate, the political climate around this type of thing. And so part of me thinks, if not now, when? Okay.
All right, I think I have one more person here, and then someone down in the audience that I ignored earlier, so we have 2 more people.
Okay. All right. My name's Jody Petula, and I'm a Newburyport resident. I made notes as people were speaking, so excuse me if I'm a little bit back and forth. I keep hearing that people are accusing the cities of being us or them. I don't think that is the issue. I think the issue is this happened rather quickly, and that the costs are kind of high for what this project is. So everybody's expressed their desire to help VOTEC, but I think what the expression should be is, how can we make it more manageable for everybody so that we're not wrecking our city's budgets and we're not taxing our communities to death. And I find this process a little confusing, that the people with the least students seem to be paying the most, and the people with the most students are paying the least. So I am all for, if somebody has the power to readjust this method, whatever it may be. I don't know what the proper solution would be, but I think that would be great. And everybody's making Newburyport out to be the bad guys. It's not just Newburyport. It's other communities that voiced their concerns also. One of my questions is all these systems are in great disrepair, and they do need to be updated, but I'm wondering, why weren't these things brought up prior? Because these things didn't all break down yesterday. Why wasn't it brought up sooner so that the cities could all get together to help as things were breaking down? I know with our elementary school project, it took a long time to get that off the ground. And I know the school used trailers for a long time to help support where the kids were having their classrooms while things were being fixed. So I don't think this has to be an all or nothing project. I think it should be broken down more. All right, I think that's just about it. Thank you very much.
All right, I want to remind everybody, we've been talking about this on Local Pulse for the past 2 weeks. You can go to localpulseradio.com and hear my interviews with Mayor Reardon and Mayor Gove. This week, on Saturday morning, 9 a.m., we'll be talking with somebody from the Yes on Whittier side of things. So if you want to hear that side of it, it's localpulseradio.com. It's a live stream and a podcast immediately after that. And this will be our final question.
Thank you, Joe. I'll be really quick here. I'm a huge, longtime supporter of vocational education, right up front. I have concerns that the school committee in Newburyport, and it sounds like in other communities, appointed representatives to the Whittier School Committee, and yet those Whittier School Committee members apparently never reported back to anyone about this. I mean, what do? Do they go to meetings and they vote for things and they talk about things and then never bring it back to the community? If that's the case, that is a totally broken system. Another question, I'm very concerned, the MSBA funding, it's my understanding, if we vote against this, the funding goes away. All right, we all understand that. It goes away. It doesn't mean that Whittier then gets in line, let's say, for a new lower cost building, and they get the funding approved next year, or 2 years, or 5 years, or 10 years from now. It is not guaranteed. There are a lot of communities that want and need new schools. They need that funding. They get in line and they wait. It's a very, very long process. So I'm just a little concerned about that. If we vote it down and a new project comes up and there is not MSBA money, then we pay the whole load, I think. Thank you.
All right, we've gone over time. Does anybody from any of the representatives, Mayor Reardon, Mayor Gove, do you want to say anything? All right, I'm done. Thank you, everybody.